Welcome, Mark, my good friend and seven-figure entrepreneur. I'm so excited to be here with me. I have with you today, for you to be with me, for me to be with you. I have my seven-figure CEO shirt on. I didn't realize this. So Mark and I met online forever ago. But then, oh, that was actually funny. I think we had a LinkedIn conversation before we met each other on Facebook, or
Yeah,
something like that. We had a conversation forever ago, and then actually ended up meeting in person at a live event. And we immediately knew we had to do some collaboration together. And so I've had you on before, and really, received a lot of value from working with you and learning your skills. And so today, dude, extra excited to have you on. And I know there's a lot of things we could talk about in terms of research, marketing, and business and selling, and all the great things that you do with community building. But this talk specifically, as we're ramping up for Gets Paid to Speak Live, I know my clients and people in my community right now are ready to launch their own master classes. Some people offering their first ever high ticket offer and starting to have those conversations. And so that's a really exciting time. So I thought I'd bring you on and talk to you also selfishly for my benefit, because I want to learn from you. You're so amazing at gracefully sharing your offers, telling stories that make people want to become, buyers and raving fans and follow you anywhere, like I do. so big thanks to you for being here. Anybody watching, I highly invite you to ask any questions of Mark while we have him here. We only have a few minutes together, so take advantage of the time. And yeah, Mark, you wanted to share with our friends a little bit more about what you do in a way that I haven't already covered, because you're way better at this than I am.
yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me. It's always awesome to, come on with you and have these conversations. And, your group is incredible. I've been a member of it for a while, and I love the things that you're doing and these different events and offers that you're creating, and everything that you're doing for your audience and your clients is just incredible to see the work that you're doing. So I want to acknowledge that first and foremost. Okay.
For sure. Thank you, man.
And personally, my background is really kind of interesting. So I started as a agency owner, but then that just kind of evolved into the coaching and consulting space for other entrepreneurs, and really helping people just build the business that they want to build and achieve the results that they possibly, can conceive of and dream of in their head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And exactly how that works. And now really the focus of everything that I do is on making sure that entrepreneurs have all the models, skills, and systems to actually build their business to 1 million and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter where they're starting, but making sure they have that proper foundation and the proper fundamental principles in place, and all of the most powerful strategies that they're going to need in order to really make that jump, whether it's to 100K, 350, 500, 1 million, doesn't matter. But that's what the focus is.
Dude, that's a good point. Even before we go into the frameworks on the story selling and like all of that juicy part, which is going to be super exciting. Like this is something that came up for me recently. I had to ask myself. I was going through kind of a spiritual awakening, and I kind of got to a point where like, okay, like what do I even want? Like, why am I doing this whole thing? And it's, I'm shedding layers of like basically who I was when I started my business is no longer the same person that I am today. And probably 5-10 years from now, it's going to be a whole nother level again, right? And that's perfect. So I was just asking myself, like, why is it even important for me to, for example, build a 7-figure business, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people here who are starting to receive the benefits of like the solopreneur life, the entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is great. And so I'm curious too, like, what made you decide to go, you experienced some success, you had a 6-figure business. What made you decide to, let's take it to that level. What was your personal motivator at that point? Because I'm sure it wasn't like you had to, right? Like it was something you chose or decided to do. So what was that motivation for you?
Yeah, that's such a good point. Is, it wasn't a need to keep going and keep building. Is, what is that driver to make, you actually push and, implement all these new things in order to keep scaling, right? And that's something that I had to actually think about a lot personally when I was first starting to build. Is, okay, what is it that's driving me? What's the vision that's actually pushing me forward, right? And for me, really, it came down to impact, right? I'm very, very motivated by impact and what I'm going to be able to create for not just myself, but other people in this life that I have and in the businesses that I create. Well, I can't do that if I'm limited to just the the low end of the scale, where I'm just like, having a business that's just in that low 6-figure range and stays there, even though that might be comfortable or it might be something I can work with and provide different things that I want to have in my life or whatever it might be, right? Depends on who you are. I wanted to make a bigger splash and try to change the world, change lives and all of that stuff. And I had to play a bigger game in order to make that happen. And that's really what drove me. You know, it became a responsibility that I put onto myself of, you know what, the results that I create are going to have ripple effects for a long, long time for a lot of people. And that's how I can really make a difference in this world.
Boom. What an amazing place to come from. That's what I came to too. And one of the realizations in that was that for me to reach the number and of people that want consistently getting them results, you know, even if I'm in a room like Tony Robbins with like 10,000 people or whatever at one time, to be able to consistently do something so amazing, you gotta have that impact. You gotta have systems. Right? You got to have repeatable processes. And that's something I've been resisting for the longest time. And I'm sure for a lot of people here, I wonder what your take is on this. It might not be the most important thing at this moment in their journey because there's different stages to this, right? But that's kind of something that I'm like beginning to embrace. Okay, it's the CEO hat, right? How can I free up my time and have more impact without like doing more by doing less, you know? So that's kind of like my personal thing. We can jam on that some more. If you have questions on sort of the scaling phase and anybody right now or in the future, drop a hashtag future. A lot of times we have people coming in from later. And do feel free to ask Mark Logan, any scaling questions as well. So with that, shall we talk about some frameworks? We talked about some storytelling frameworks. Or did you have any other thoughts on the scaling conversation?
Well, actually, you know, I think you made a really good point right there. And it's something that all of us kind of experience along that journey, I feel, is reaching that level where all of a sudden it's like, oh, shit, if I want to keep going and I want to build something even bigger than I have, I need that system. I need that help. I need to be able to do more than just like my human capacity will allow me to do, right? And that's a huge thing. And that happened for me when I was first starting to generate leads and started to close sales and everything. I thought everything was really on point and it was working and flowing. But then all of a sudden I got to the place where I couldn't handle anymore as just myself. I got to this capacity level where it was like, okay, I can't handle any more clients. I don't have the energy or the time to actually keep promoting consistently, to create content consistently. The things are so, you know, overwhelming, and it got very chaotic. And that's when things started to break. And it's like a critical pivot point, right? Where if you don't make that, then you're going to either stay where you are or decline. And you got to open up that space to implement those systems and frameworks and all that kind of stuff. So that's an incredible point and so important for people to take away.
Oh yeah, so key. So let's rewind there, and I think I'm realizing too, as you're saying this, there's not necessarily a wrong time to start implementing repeatable processes, right? Like, you know, I think even if you're, you know, creating your first, you know, $10,000 a month or first high ticket client, even if you're documenting like, here's exactly the steps that we're doing every week in order for them to get their results, in a way where you could put, you know, record yourself. I mean, this is what I do now. I have recordings of my master classes or my live events that can easily be sold as a product and still change someone's lives without taking any more of my time. And oftentimes I throw them in as a bonus with something else. But yeah, what would you say for somebody who's maybe at their first, you know, 5K months now looking to scale to 10? How important is it to bringing in systems and processes there?
It's so important, but here's the thing. I want to make this really clear for anybody who's at that level is the systems and the processes and everything, what they really are just mechanisms to expand your capability, right? But what they do is they expand every single variable of what you do. It's not just like, I'm going to get more leads and that's the only thing that it applies to. It expands everything from you know, the amount of people that see what you do, to the amount of comments that you've got to deal with, to the amount of content that you've got to manage, but the amount of team members that you're going to bring on to help you, like all the different, you know, financial aspects that are going to go into it. Like there are all these different considerations that come in because of implementing these processes, and it can get complicated. But that's what stops a lot of people from actually doing it. They say it's going to be too much. I'm not going to be able to handle that. But what I want people to know, if you're at that 5K month level, trying to get to 10 or in that kind of a zone, the most important thing is to make your actual communication and content creation processes of like that you actually go through yourself, the actual creation aspect of things yourself, make that consistent and repeatable. So having frameworks of this is how I write my Facebook posts, or this is how I do my Facebook Live interviews, or this is how I do my Facebook Live trainings, or this is how I, write my articles, whatever it might be like that, making sure that process is clear in your head and you've got these mental models of how to actually approach that, right?
Yeah.
That's the key in the early stages.
That's so key, and I think so fitting because we are about to talk about some frameworks. And I'll say, like, the realization, the big one for me is that everything we're currently doing is already a system. We're already using a system. It just currently gives us the results that we currently have. And if we want to optimize them, it's really more of making better systems and improving our systems than it is to draw out something completely crazy out of nowhere, right? So there's that too, where you completely disband what you're doing and then bringing in something new. But I think for most people, it's just like making those small shifts. For example, like in the sales conversations, for example, that I'm coaching my clients on now, where before, a lot of times they're just, they get like, oh, I'm going to think about it. And they're like, oh, dang it, this person needs to think about it. I knew they weren't going to buy. And then they just like, let it go. It's like now having a framework, I teach the meta model, right? It's like, here's how I address and understand what people's objections are. It's like, is this, okay, what do you need to think about? I'm just curious, like, what's up? Right? Okay, and then they can listen for the money objection. Oh, it's I can't afford it. Cool. Is it cool if we talk about it? I have payments plans. Did you know? Right? I have a system for that. Or is it the authority? Like I can't just make this decision by myself. I don't feel like confident in making this decision. It's a trust objection, right? So knowing what those models are, and then having a framework for approaching each one of those has been a complete game changer for me because I had a way of dealing with it, which is not dealing with it before, But as soon as you have a framework for thinking about this, and now you have a way broader perspective on understanding something and creating better results consistently. So super exciting stuff. Great point.
And not just the creation of the results consistently, but it's kind of giving yourself clarity, right? And certainty when you're in those situations. Like how to approach all those different conversations and how to share different points and address different topics without really stressing yourself out about like, how do I word this? How do I actually talk about this? It all just kind of flows naturally, and you can be fluid in the conversation instead of being super rigid and trying to treat it like a formula.
That's so good. That's so good. So the key distinction here is where it kind of like in school, people teach you like what to think. Some even coaches out there will tell you exactly like what to say. But what we're about to do is really like how to think about this, so that when you're in a situation, you know how to be yourself and goes effortlessly, right?
Exactly, and that's really that's a great point. How to think is so much more important. And in my programs, my mentorship programs, and everything where I work with other entrepreneurs and whatnot, we don't even get into the tactical stuff and the what to say and the scripts and templates and all that kind of stuff. Even though I have hundreds of them that I share, we don't touch any of that stuff until we first address how this guy works. And making sure you're looking at the whole process the right way, because that's the key to everything.
For sure. So exciting. So guys, at any point, if you are getting an insight from this, just type a #insight. It's a new model that I'm adopting. We did it at our live event in our last mastermind, which is amazing. So just type insight and then write in one sentence, what is it that you're taking away from this so far or at any point in the future? Because when you do this, you're helping other people understand what your download and your takeaway is. You're actually also, by expressing it right away, you're also deepening the lesson for yourself, and we all basically share in the wisdom of it. So it's just like a gift that keeps on giving. All right, now Mark, let's finally dive in. So I'm really hungry, and I know I'm sure everybody at this point listening will want to know, like, what are these frameworks for having these casual conversations, and what kind of results have you been able to accomplish with that yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the first thing, that's a good question. The first thing is that there are so many frameworks that you can apply across your entire business, whether it's in the zone of, market research, or it's attraction and conversion, or it's how you build your offers, or it's how you have these conversations on sales calls, or anything in between, right? And I know that we said that we're going to talk about some conversational selling tips and all that kind of stuff. Right? Well, the frameworks that you want to use there is to really just make sure that you're always clear on exactly what it is that you're, talking about, what the topic is, what the issue is that you're talking about first. And then you can really whittle it down from there into exactly how you're going to address things, right? So I want to give you a practical example just to kind of like make this a little bit more clear.
For sure.
And let's talk about, telling a story on a sales call, right? If you're going to address an objection, like, Miro, you mentioned objection handling, right?
Yeah.
Imagine an objection comes up on the sales call, right? And you want to use a story, or you want to address that objection without being, really traditional with how you attack it, and, being pushy or being salesy or anything like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, well, what's the topic that I'm talking about when it comes to this story? What's going to be relevant to this person's objection and the situation they're in and the things that they're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say it was a price objection. Someone says, I can't really afford it right now, or let me think about it actually for a couple of days. Like I'm not really ready because I've done a couple of these things in the past and it didn't really work out the way I wanted it to, right? Well, you might tell a story and say, well, yeah, I totally understand exactly where you're coming from. I was actually in this exact same place too with a couple other programs that I took, and I learned that this here and this here and this here actually weren't as big of a deal as I thought they were, and that led me to this breakthrough that allowed me to move forward. And that's a very simple thing that you can't even really see what I'm doing. You can't even really see like what's happening there, as opposed to the typical sales tactics where you might say, oh, well, what do you need to think about?
Right. It's yeah.
You understood the value. What's wrong here? What's holding you back? Instead, you're coming with empathy and you're coming with experience, and you're sharing an insight from what you've been through, and giving them a lesson to apply inside of that, saying, this is what I took away from that, and it allowed me to do blank, which might have been buy, it might have been move forward, it might have been, handle the conversation with your business partner before you move forward, like whatever it is, doesn't really matter, but it gives you clarity immediately and makes the prospect feel like you're with them and you're on the same page, right?
Yeah, so good. I'm reminded of the concept of feel, felt, found. Have you heard that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's so great. I feel like that's something that could be used within that as well, right? It's like I feel you where you come from. It doesn't feel like it's the right time to move forward, right?
Yeah. Or you can even mold it to stories about what other clients of yours have been through, or other prospects that you've talked to have been through, or whatever it might be. There's so many ways that you can apply that exact thing. Mm-hmm. And I know we've talked about this before, Mira, just like on the phone and whatnot, just kind of chatting about these issues. But storytelling and all this kind of stuff that we're talking about, these frameworks and whatnot, they apply to so many different specific situations strategically. There's so many different ways that you can mold it, and so many different ways that you can bend it. It's crazy when you actually get into the depths of it all. But you want to keep that in mind of, I can use this kind of an approach in any situation that I want to. It's just about what is that model.
Yeah, so good. Well done. Let's talk about the different applications of this, and then we can go a little deeper as well. We talked about content. You can do this doing videos. You can do this on calls when you're handling objections. What are really the limits to, or different variations in which you've seen or applied this one framework, right? Because what I heard you say is there's kind of what is the thing that we're talking about? Why? Can you repeat that framework too? I think that's a little bit.
Yeah. So everybody, I want you to write this down. If you have a pen when you're watching this, the framework that we're talking about here is what, why, lesson, apply. So what exactly is the topic? What's the issue? What's going on, right? And then why does this matter to the person that you're talking to? And then what's the lesson that they should take away from this thing that we're talking about, right? What's the lesson? And then what's one step that they can use to actually apply this and put it into action to make this whole conversation and this whole thing that we've talked about a actual productive thing that's going to get them, forward in their business, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So now let's take an example from, so for example, I'll be presenting, right? I'll be presenting on Friday to a lot of my audience and my clients and some new people too, just, how to do live masterclasses, live events. So I'm teaching the concept and the frameworks, but I'm also modeling. And so what is a good way, and that's always the one thing I'm looking for, easily, pointing someone to the next step, right? So for example, the next step will be a clarity, like an implementation type call. And I know my clients are going to be having a similar thing, a call to action. For some, it's buy my course. For others, it's, apply here. For the next person, it might be, hop on a call with me. But like, how would you use this framework in the context like that?
Sure. So let's start at the end, right? Let's start at the end with the apply part, okay? So I think this is really important because when it comes to that apply step, that call to action step, when it comes to any of these offers or any of these posts or whatever it is that people do, right? It's really important that you do that with finesse and you're not trying to force this offer down somebody's throat after sharing whatever it was that you shared. So you can tell a powerful story about something and tell them why it matters, and you can give them a lesson that's really valuable and everything. But if at the end you're trying to force this down their throat and saying, okay, go now, click now, do this now, okay, like you're running out of time, do this now, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, that's bigger.
If that's your approach, then nobody's going to apply shit.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So what you need to do is make sure that when you get to that place, you basically make it clear that somebody has the opportunity available for them to take advantage of, given what they've learned, given the lesson that they've learned, given how much it matters and everything that you've talked about so far. They have the opportunity now to discover more about it, move forward down that line. And if they don't want to take advantage of it, that's fine. But it's your job to make sure they understand the consequences of not doing it, understand exactly why this is important, and then give them everything that they need in order to trigger that thought in their mind of, okay, this might make sense for me to look into deeper, and offer them that chance to do it. It's the power of choice that you're giving people. That's
empowerment, ultimately, right?
Yeah.
And that also attracts really good clients because, people who need to be sort of that head-on confrontation collision, oftentimes they are people who don't really think for themselves. They're easily convinced of other things, and swing different ways. And so that's not really a recipe for success. So if you want high caliber, right? If you want high vibing people who are empowered, entrepreneurs or leaders or even high achieving professionals as your clients, which I recommend because a lot of times there's where a lot of resources are, right? Then you want to speak to them like they are the, free, smart, in control leaders, right?
Absolutely.
And equals, not even putting them up above you or down below, right? But like as equals. So that's a really powerful place. I believe the kind of the sweet spot. But also this posturing, and I learned this from Eli Wild. He has these, he didn't invent them by any means, but he tells me about posturing. Are you familiar with that concept?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. So there's an inferior, an equal, and superior posture, and we can navigate through that at any point in our conversation where it might be, hey, you're already way up there with your 7-figure business, and I'm only here, little me, with my little 6 figures or whatever, right? But I also like, hey, you're just an entrepreneur like me out here trying to make it work, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So good.
And actually, I want to address something that you said when you asked me that question. Is when it comes to like a masterclass and presenting that and modeling that all at the same time, when you're telling these kind of stories or when you're presenting these kinds of ideas and all that stuff, how that would go in the earlier parts of this framework, right? The like what, why, lesson part of things, right? Well, the what is always just going to be, okay, what's a topic that's related to this thing? What's a topic? What my experience, somebody else's experience, or something I'm seeing, or something that I went through, or whatever it is. It could be a movie for all I care. It doesn't matter what it is. As long as it's relevant, as long as that what is relevant to the thing that is you're talking about and ultimately pitching, then start by talking about that. So it's like I want to share with you this scene that I talked about in this movie. Or I was watching this movie the other day and I saw this guy go through this thing, and this reminded me of a really important principle that really matters for entrepreneurs if you're going to do X, Y, Z. And this is really important. Now we get to the why. This is really important. And it's crazy how these lessons come out of the woodwork everywhere you look in life. This is why this matters, because it's going to stop you from doing this. Or most people don't realize this and they should. And all that kind of stuff. And then you get into the lesson. Then you get into just explaining what it is that you're actually talking about, what this principle is that you learned. And then you tell people, okay, here's the takeaway, the main takeaway that you should carry away from this lesson, and here's how to apply it. or how to learn more about how to apply it.
The next step. Beautiful. Beautiful. Really well done. So what I'm hearing there, like the nuances are that when you get into the lesson, it's kind of like first you pause, you explain why this is going to be important for them to like lean in and listen. And then as you explain the lesson, and this could be your 3-step process or your 5-step process or whatever your recent download is for the day, for the content, then it's recap, in a nutshell. So in a nutshell, this is what you want to take away, and always, do this thing. If you want to go deeper with this, here's how you apply everything we've just learned.
And always, when it comes to the lesson, it's really important to make sure that you're not giving people too many things to take away. In fact, the approach that I always take is I never give a takeaway that's more than one thing. Here's one powerful thing that you should take away from this here. If you want to go deeper, then that's why we have the apply phase. And that's why we can have more conversations around this. But for this particular moment in time, take this one thing away to remember and put this into action. And that's it.
That's actually key. That's actually, the simplicity of that is super powerful. Because I think as people are scaling, 6 and then 7 figures and like starting to grow a business, it can get complicated really quickly. And people sometimes feel the need to like fill up their courses with so much content to like show how valuable it is.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? But sometimes that's not actually serving. Like sometimes it's just like keeping things simple. Like what are the simple things? And one of the mindsets that I've adopted is that if it's not simple, it's not going to be right for me. It's not going to work for me unless it's simple. So having simplicity be the key, because otherwise, overwhelm happens. You have, more things that can fail, basically, if you try to deliver too many points. Think about it. If you can only have one, if you have 3 amazing lessons and then the 4th one is the one where people are like, huh, what the fuck, Miro? Right? What did you just say? That's weird. I don't want that, right? Then you lose them. And so, but if you keep it simple, there's so much power in simplicity. So super good point.
Totally. And actually, when it comes to attraction and conversion and everything, especially for offers and in your copywriting and videos and all that kind of stuff, if you actually confuse people or make people feel any kind of vagueness or stress or, put forth any effort to think and figure something out, right, they're going to be pushed away. It's not even like a they won't take action type of thing. It's they will literally go another direction because it's an uncomfortable place you're putting them into instead of what you intend to do, which is put them into that valuable position where they're saying, oh my God, this is really great and making my life better, right? That subtle thing can be the difference between making somebody's life better in that moment and making it worse and uncomfortable.
That's a good point, because now they have another decision to juggle with that they weren't prepared for. Such a good insight. I saw, what's his name? Jesse Elder. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
Great guy. So I saw him do these presentations, and he would always do the same thing. And I wonder what your opinion is about this. Is he would have sort of the title of his post or the headline be the exact same thing as the next step, or he would have the in a webinar or like masterclass. I think it was actually a webinar. He gave like the title of the event. I don't know what it was. Like, let's say in the context of get paid to speak, right? Like let's say it was get paid to speak. And then at the end he would say, so if you want to get paid to speak, do this. I thought it was totally clever because this is something that people already said yes to, but at the same time, so like the likelihood of that they're going to say yes to it again is like way high, right? They're going to continue to say yes to it. But then also I was like a little bit like are people going to be like, I don't know, how do you think about this? Like I feel like there's also something a little bit like, in my mind, I always thought that, okay, you're coming in with this, wanting this. By the time you go through this, you're going to want this. So where's your mindset on that? I'm just personally curious.
Yeah, sure. So that's a really great question. Really great question. So there are positives and negatives to everything, right? And the positive that I see with this one is it's congruent. The whole message is congruent, right? Just by using that same phrase, at the beginning and the end, that makes it super, super aligned, right? And people are clear about what it is that you're talking about, right? But at the same time, here's the dark side. And this is kind of where I would lean and avoid doing this, is it makes it seem canned and not authentic. So all of a sudden, you can have a super authentic and genuine and valuable message that people go through where they're connecting with you and all that stuff. But then all of a sudden, that one little thing of using the exact same, phrase again, same headline at the end or whatever, it can kind of make it seem like it wasn't quite as authentic as it did when you were reading it. So you kind of disconnect a little bit, that momentary feeling of this is a pitch, this is just a pitch, and that's something that can make a big difference. So I would approach it a different way, and I would talk about getting paid to speak, right? And I would have that there at the end, just like I did in the headline, but I wouldn't just say that. I would wordsmith it a little bit, and I would make it just a little bit more conversational, and flow a little bit better and naturally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't get it at this point. Like, they understand if your message was good before that. You don't have to, use the exact same words again to make them understand.
Totally, because they get it already.
Yeah.
That makes totally sense. So let's do a practical example, right? So would you start with the sort of simple headline? So for example, like if the benefit is you can create a virtual event and fill out your coaching program in an afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Would you lead with that? How to do this, and then the action, right? The next step is, how do we do this? Paid master classes, virtual live events, get paid. Does it matter? How do you think about this?
So it doesn't matter. So the real truth behind it, when it comes to that kind of like a headline or whatever, is that you're really just putting it into this model of, okay, what is going to capture people's emotional attention and make them think?
Oh, I saw your post around that. So you start with the emotions, and then you want to make them think.
You want to make them think, yeah, because the emotions, if you think about it, the whole point of the headline and the hook and all that kind of stuff, right, is to literally hook and capture their attention, right? Well, what does that? Emotions do that. Feelings do that. But the biggest thing that's going to make people actually continue reading, beyond just like seeing the headline and it capturing their attention, what's going to make people start to continue down that path of reading it is making them think in that moment of, oh, there's something I might not know, or, oh, this belief that I have has just been challenged, or this might not be true in the way that I thought it was, or wait a second, I didn't know that I was actually able to do that, or that was possible. Let me see what this is all about. And then they'll continue down that path. But this is one of those frameworks where it's not about the exact words you use necessarily. It's about, okay, what's the purpose behind this part here? And that's it.
So powerful. So as you say that, like I remember seeing an ad where somebody gave me a breakthrough just like that, where sort of my belief shifted, and I was like, wow, I've got to follow this person like forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually Scott Olford, and the lesson I got from that, he was probably listening to your content, following your frameworks, because he was like using the why, what, apply in the lesson concept. And I remember specifically, he was literally walking outside with his little phone out, mm-hmm. and sharing the story with his arms flailing. And he was saying how most entrepreneurs are stopping themselves from scaling to that 7-figure level because they feel like it would be too much responsibility. Then he said that, but they don't realize the concept of responsibility. You don't actually go out into life to have less responsibility. If you think about, right, if you think about the places where, this is a breakthrough for me, but if you think about the places where you have less responsibility, think about it, like when you're dead, when you're in a hospital, when you're in a prison cell, or somehow like your choices are being taken away, then you have fewer and fewer responsibilities, right? Or maybe you sort of get old and die. Like, yes, you don't have as many things to worry about. But if that's the life that you want, then gosh, that's why we became entrepreneurs in the first place, right? To have less responsibility. So that was an incredible breakthrough for me, because like, wow, okay, so here's one barrier that I'm not going to have to deal with as I continue my growth. And also, that guy knows something. That guy knows something that I don't know.
That's right there. That's so huge. What you just said is that guy knows something. If you can get somebody to think that for 1 second, mm-hmm. they're going to at least read some of your content, or at least listen to some of your video, or watch some of your webinar, whatever it is that you're doing. If you can make them feel that one thing, like, this guy might know something that I don't, mm-hmm. and it might matter. So let me take a second.
So good, dude. Honestly, I feel like that's a really great, point to kind of recap our lessons. So, guys, if you're still watching or watching from the future, drop your biggest insights and questions for Mark. I have a bunch of notifications, but it might easily be that it's that it's messages. I won't even get into it. But in terms of next steps, where can people experience more of your work and all the amazing things that you do, Mark?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not on Facebook very often anymore. I used to be a lot, and I was really, focusing my attention on engaging with my audience inside my Facebook group and all of that stuff. But recently, I made a really big shift, and I created a private community, a WhatsApp group that I call my Black Box Boardroom. My company is called Black Box HQ, and I work with clients and actually guests of the community as well. It's a free community, and I advise them on all these different topics, all these different frameworks, all these different, marketing and sales and production tactics and strategies and all that kind of stuff, right? And that's where I am mostly engaged with my audience. And this is an application only group. This is something that people do have to apply for because the high vibrancy community is something that we're very selective about. And the number is very capped of who is allowed to come in and how many people we can handle. So that's where I am now, and where you'll typically find me, and what I want to do for you guys, because I know that this group is amazing and it's just awesome to engage with all of you, is I want to share that link with you to actually apply for the boardroom. If you want to engage with me more and you want to learn all about all my principles and insights and everything that I share there, then I want to allow you to actually apply for that and give you priority consideration to join the group, because I know how high caliber you are. And I've shared the link with Miro. He'll share it with you here in the chat, in the comments, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can click there. You can come in. You can see what it's all about, and I can talk to you there and connect a little bit deeper.
I love that so much, dude. Thank you so much for making that available. And I just immediately felt when I came into the WhatsApp group, which, by the way, is such a unique format for, to build community, and I love it, especially given that we have people from all over the world now joining you in there. I love it because the energy is high, and I already made connections with people who happen to need my services. So like those referrals are immediately happening. That's been super great, and just networking and all the content, like the vault, like it's so good. So
awesome to hear, man. I'm glad that you've gotten a lot of value out of it, and we're just getting started. It's pretty new. It's only been around for, I guess, 2 months now, and everything, but it's becoming a really high vibe community, and so much stuff is going on in there. So it'd be great to talk to you guys deeper in there and to connect more.
So good. Big thanks, Mark. I'm getting ready for Get Paid to Speak Live. So guys, if you haven't signed up for it or anything like that, definitely reach out to me. I'm so excited to share my gifts and my learnings from my journey and getting people the transformational results that way. But you'll hear much more about that. It's not the last time I'll talk about that. But this is definitely a chance to get on board with the boardroom. Get on board with the boardroom. Sweet. Thanks again, Mark, and for your time, your energy, and your insight. It's been so fun. I'm sure we'll do much more of this soon.
Oh, my pleasure, man. And thanks again for having me. It's always great to join you here. And yeah, we'll do this again for sure.
All right, let's do this. Peace.
All right.